All right, we are live. This is the Live with Sondra show, and I want to welcome you all back to another episode that I'm really excited about. We're going to be talking about hospitality and making the guest experience rememberable. Rememberable. Hopefully, I'm saying that correctly, but our next guest is going to tell us what if I'm getting that right. But we want to make it rememberable. And if you guys out there listening are owners, operators of attractions, I've got a guest today that I think you're going to hear from. And the session for today is titled The Power of Being Rememberable and Elevating Guest Loyalty and Experiences. So some of you may remember this guest from a past show that we did a year ago. And he is absolutely one of my favorite guests for a couple of reasons. One, because, we talk about passion and loving what you do, and just this person just brings so much passion and care. I hope that's the right word, but care to hospitality. And he's joining us today because he has a new keynote that he is introducing. So if you guys need an amazing speaker to come to your events or talk to your teams, this is somebody you're going to want to talk to. But before I bring him on stage, let's do another quick introduction for this guest. My next guest is Bob Pacanovsky. So if you guys remember Bob from last year, he's an entrepreneur with over 30 years. He's a keynote speaker, trainer, and helping businesses elevate their hospitality. He's an expert in service excellence. And when we asked Bob what he can't live without, he said spending time with his wife, Connie, and his daily morning routine of devotion, prayer, and exercise. And this is somebody that I can tell you, if there is somebody who has a daily routine that is benefiting their day, this is somebody that I think I'd like to take a note from his book, because Bob is just so full of energy and so full of really valuable information. And I just realized, for those of you listening to the show for the first time or watching today, I'm your host, Sondra Shannon, CEO of Gatemaster Technology, and we're going to bring Bob to the stage. Bob, welcome to the show. I hope that Sondra, introduction was okay.
It's great to be here again with you. That was awesome. Thank you. I'm humbled. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, I just am so glad that you came back to the show today for many reasons. One, not just because I love hearing from you, but also because I mean that when I say that. I think you do bring a lot of excitement and passion to hospitality, something that we've talked about, you and I. I believe that hospitality is a conversation that we need to be having, probably even more so now than ever. We're seeing so many of our attractions and even businesses that are lacking that personal touch, that I think the personal and the professional touch that I think you and I both are in agreement is super important to the guest experience in order to make that experience more memorable. And in order to make it, did I get that right?
You did. Yeah, it's rememberable.
Rememberable.
Right. And I'll talk about that here shortly.
Yeah. So to make that guest experience rememberable, and I know maybe some of you watching, I've had guests on my show from Hershon, and one of their core pillars is to create experiences worth repeating. So I really love this idea of that, because in order to make something worth repeating, which is what businesses want, they want that repeat business. They want those guests to keep coming back. They want the guests to talk about their experience. And so much of that comes from how you make them feel when they're there at attractions. So before we get started with some of the questions I have for you, is there anything you want to say about your career, your experience being here today?
Well, no, thank you. You know what? Well, first of all, you've said a lot. I appreciate it. I can't, it's like, yes, I'm agreeing with you 100%. Probably one thing that I want to tell your audience is that, or things that I talk about today in my seminars, these have come from a lot of trial and error, success and challenge, because I've been in the shoes of all of your listeners, people watching today, because I did every job in my company, right? This isn't just some book sense stuff that I'm throwing out to people. This is stuff that has been tried true I failed a lot, right? We all have, but I've learned how to get back up and to keep innovating and to keep excelling. And so all the stuff that I talk about and in my seminars is things that I work with my staffs on for a number of years. So
Well, you know what? I before we get started, I do have a question for you because I read this last time in your bio that you have worked on 25 Pro Football Hall of Fame inductions, and I've always wanted to ask you, do you mind just telling me a little bit about that, if you can? I know sometimes
sure.
that stuff's
Yeah.
top secret, but I'm super fascinated with the sports world, and also how that does apply to what you mentioned, to a moment ago, that so much of success is about failure, right? Trying things and learning. So I think we see a lot of that, and which is why I'm fascinated by that world. I'd love to know a little bit more about that.
Well, yeah, sure. So you know what? So quick story about it. So we did the very first Hall of Fame induction party in Canton, Ohio. That's where it is, obviously, and at the Hall of Fame, right? So a lot of stories about that, but I mean, so the parties are right after the induction ceremony, right? Well, so the first party was done late afternoon, early evening, and we did it. It was and it did great. So the following year, then they moved them all to the Hall of Fame. Well, we were deemed not to be good enough to work at it. And maybe because we weren't big enough or whatever it was. So I made a really concerted effort to get even better at service excellence, hospitality, so forth. So then the following year, we had to bid against two other companies much larger than us. And because of just the process, the systems we put in place, the staff I had, which was Sondra, they were phenomenal. And so we got 5 parties that first year out of 7. And then for the next 4 years, we got another 20 parties, right? And think about this. This is the pinnacle of the career of a pro football player, right?
Sure.
And only 300 and some odd, 390 players, owners, whatever, have gotten in the Hall of Fame. And so, I would tell my staff, like, folks, this is it. I mean, this is our one shot. This is the this has to be perfect. We have to do everything in our power to make it perfect. And Sondra, one of the best compliments I would get would be coming up from the players, their wives, say, Bob, this was better than we ever thought. In fact, Sondra, I'll tell a quick story. One of the teams we did a party for. Now, here's the key. Hall of Fame is in August, and the players are named at the start of February. So we don't know who's getting in the Hall of Fame right until February. So anyway, so we got a party for a team, did the party. It was fantastic. Here was the phone call the second year, right? And in fact, the following year, this team happened to get a player into the Hall of Fame, right? Here was the phone call, and I'm paraphrasing. But this is from the vice president of marketing. Bob, listen, I'm going to cut to the chase. You're getting John's party. Wow, thank you. And let me tell you why, Bob. All the things that you and your people did last year for Randall were incredible. I mean, your staff was so friendly. They were so professional. Bob, they took care of every detail for us. Oh, by the way, Bob, your food was really good too.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it real easy. You have John's party this year. Now, Sondra, that was a $25,000 party based on one phone call, but more importantly, based on how we took care of their client and their team the previous year. That's becoming memorable. So It was great. And in fact, I'm a big sports fan too. But my job at those parties, I had great staff. My job was to go to all the parties, make sure the players were taken care of. And I remember, in fact, we did a party for Gary Zimmerman, Denver Bronco, right? Went in as a Bronco. Great guy, by the way. Now, I live in Cleveland, Ohio, Sondra. So Denver and Cleveland, we're not the best, because of Mr. Elway and what he did to the Rams, right?
Yeah.
And here's the funny thing. So I'm waiting to talk to Gary. and John Elway is standing there, and all I could think about, and people are like, "Oh, Bob, did you talk to John?" I'm like, "No." All I could think about is, can I talk to Gary? I mean, I know you're a teammate, but I need to talk to Gary. He's my client right now. I mean, it didn't matter to me. John Elway was standing there. I was focused on Gary and his wife, but still, it was a great thing for us to do or with all those parties, and I still have wonderful memories of them.
Well, that makes a lot of sense to me that even the NFL or these pro football players, with so many of them buying businesses, right? Like I just bought a Jaguar last year, F-Pace from Elway, one of Elway's car dealerships. But in addition to that, one of my favorite restaurants here in Denver, so it's funny that you brought him up, is Elway's. It's a steakhouse. But the thing more so than the food, because there's times where I've been there, the food's better than others, but the experience, the service, it is meaningful to people. And it is one of the reasons my husband and I always go back for our anniversary. It's a great experience. So I love what you mentioned there about getting these Hall of Fame parties, because you created an experience that was rememberable for people to rememberable enough that they called you back and said, we're going to give it to you this next year. And It's interesting because I have a couple of mentees right now who keep asking me about ways that they can get their names out there. And I think it's just the same exact concept that you're saying, being somebody or an institution or business that customers and guests can remember, or as you said, make it rememberable. So, let's jump into some questions I have for you, because I really appreciate you coming back to the show. I love talking to you. I love what your insights. And I know that recently you've done some surveys about customer service insights. And so I'm curious, because you've recently conducted a survey as part of your Keynote research. And I'm wondering if you can share what prompted you to ask about the current state of customer service.
Yeah, sure. So, I think, the last 4 or 5 years, the world has changed. We all know that. And, and I've been thinking about this for a while, just for a few years because I read articles and I see things, I'm constantly researching. I thought, what? I want to do my own research. I want to ask, for lack of a better phrase, the average customer, right? We're all customers, Sondra. We buy things all the time. So I want to ask the average customer what their thoughts are on customer service. And I'm so glad that I did, because just the insights that I got from them is really what I was looking for as I move forward to bring out this new Keynote.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think it is important to get information directly from the source, like customers. We've all had experiences. I don't know if you know this about me. I started in hospitality and fine dining in Los Angeles, Hollywood, and Beverly Hills. So I understand like those experiences, right? I often tell people when they would ask me, in the late 90s on a Saturday and Sunday, I could do $3,000 in tips easy.
Wow.
On brunch. But it was because we were creating these incredible experiences. I mean, I can't even imagine what it would cost today. But, to buy those brunches that we were serving back then. But, that leads me to some of what you're talking about. In your survey, it looks like 81% of respondents said that some companies excel at this while others need a lot of improvement. So what do you think is causing that wide gap in the quality of service?
Yeah, well, so first, let me just give you a little backstory in this. So this was a multiple choice question, right? So there are 4 answers that I gave. The other 3 were, it's great everywhere I go. I figured I had to throw that in there. Let's see if anybody would bite on that, right? But the second one was adequate or okay. And the last one was, it requires a lot of improvement. So those were the 3 other answers. And then that 4th one, which was 81%. So and frankly, I was a little surprised at that, but here's what this tells me. Now, I'm going to give your audience a secret. Okay. No one else knows this. So I want them to lean in real close, because I got this secret from here's the reason why 81% of people that said that some companies excel while most need significant improvement. You know what it is, Sondra? It's there's this door. Okay. There's a secret door that the companies that excel in customer service, those are the only ones that know about it because because behind this door are all the great people that they can hire. No, that's not it. There is no door, right? I
Yeah.
mean, so why is it? Why do some companies excel while most require significant improvement? Well, I think to me, it's telling me that these companies are hiring the right people, right? But then more importantly, they're going to be doing it the right way by training, onboarding them, by spending the time and money to do so, by mentoring them, by coaching them, and then empowering them to deliver this hospitality and service at a high level, which all boils down to systems. These companies have systems in place. You know, I tell people we should never wing it when it comes to customer service because we're never going to win. But yet we still see today companies winging it, right? But the companies that are excelling, I believe they have these systems and they're making it intentional on how to train their people.
Yeah. Oh, I don't disagree. I think a lot of it goes back to the support that we give our teams, the training, right?
Yeah.
Because I know my kids didn't. I mean, as a mom, if I'm just, I hate to put my kids on the spot here, but as a mom, they didn't enter the world hospitable, right? They just
What's
didn't.
yeah.
I'm having to teach them manners. I'm having to teach them stuff. And that's not to say that every employee or every team member that you have is going to show up like this, because some of us understand these ideas and
Right.
are training in this. When I went into fine dining as a young woman, I trained for that. I trained to make sure that I understood, the way that someone would be served champagne, or how we would want to set up a table properly and what that looked like, and what, it definitely it exceeds the level of hospitality that at least my kids who are now getting ready to enter the workforce have. So I think it's important what you're saying, that you do have to train your team, you do have to support the staff, you do have to share these ideas of hospitality with teams, and it is and should be part of the value and culture. I mentioned I had a gentleman from Hershey on the show, one of their food departments, and they always say that they are also creating food worth repeating because they want people to come back and eat the same food over and over again. And their pillar is making memories worth repeating, which I really love, because if you've ever visited one of their parks, and one of their parks is I think Dolly World, and Dolly is involved in the
Mhm.
Hershey family and all of their parks. You can feel the love, right? Like, I've never been to one of their parks where every person isn't smiling, greeting you. Or I had an experience last year where I was just lost, and somebody came out of nowhere to help me because they were that attentive to their guests. I wasn't expecting that. And so, and we're talking about it today because it was such a memorable thing. So, going back to your surveys, I wonder, or the survey that you did, I wonder if there are any surprising responses or trends that you saw in your survey of customers that stood out to you.
Yes, there were. One of the things, and so one of the questions I asked also was, tell me about a positive customer service experience. How did it make you feel, and when it was, right? And
Yeah.
and I think the key to that was that last question, when it was. Sondra, I had somebody write back to me about a great experience they had 24 years ago.
Wow.
That's 2001. They still remember it. It is, so when I asked it, all those memories came back to them, right? I had another gentleman, it was 15 years for a fine dining restaurant. I mean, I was hearing these all the time. Maybe not 15 and 24 years, but 2, 3, 4, 7 years positively. But there's a flip side of this, Sondra. I also asked, tell me about a negative experience. And same questions, how to make you feel and when it was. And I heard those years, like 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So we don't forget how we're made to feel on a positive or negative way. And for me, see, I think I know this. I think I have an idea why this is happening, right? And I talk about this in my seminars, but as consumers, we typically don't remember average or ordinary service, right? Now, I know we can't have rainbows and puppy dogs and unicorns every time we work with a company, but but by and large, we just don't remember what's average and ordinary. And
Sure.
so I ask, or when's the last time you said words or phrases like, wow, fantastic. It's like they know me. Man, they take great care of me. They made me feel so special, right? See, I think those words and phrases today are still the exception in business today and not the rule. And part of what I want to do is, as maybe corny as it sounds, is I want to make these words and phrases the rule, because if you hear these from your customers, then I truly believe you are becoming rememorable, right? Now, I'm pretty sure that's not a word, Sondra, but I'm making it up here because here's what happens when you become rememorable. First of all, you have emotions, right? And then secondly, you start telling others, right? People start talking. Word of mouth marketing starts happening. And stories, not only do they create emotions, but they affirm or confirm the buying decision, right? Hey, gosh, I don't know if I should go to that park, that attraction. Oh, you know what? You have to go. Let me tell you what happened. Let me tell you how they treated our family. Oh my gosh. And make sure you do this and this, right? That's an emotion because that's how you remember it.
Yeah. No, it's true. When I went to that, I was at Silver Dollar City last year, and when I had just such a great experience, so much so I came back, told the guy in the office, and he booked a trip for him and his family this summer. I'm really excited for them to have that. And you know what else feels good about when you have one of those black tie experiences that you talk about, where it's rememberable. And I wasn't sure if that was a word because, sometimes words for me are tough. I'm a dyslexic, so I always laugh because I'm like, hey, I'm learning what I'm reading here. But what I love about that for them, that business, that institution that I went and visited, and my friend's going to go now, is that I felt good about referring him because I know they're going to have that kind of experience there. I know that's going to have a positive impact on his family and the memories that they're creating moving forward after they go out to Branson, because I know they're just going to have a great time there. And
That's awesome.
you have mentioned to me you've mentioned to us here today, but also on our previous conversation about how some companies are creating this black tie experience that you call it. And I have to mention, we got dressed up for you guys today.
No,
Yeah.
this one I always wear. You look great all the time anyway. Yeah, thanks for putting the theme of black and white together. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I knew you were coming, so I was like, I'm getting dressed up for Bob today.
Hey,
And you mentioned this black tie experience that you want to see created in institutions and businesses and attractions. But those that are doing it, what do you think they are doing differently that sets them apart? Is there one thing? I know you mentioned about supporting and all of those other things, but I'm wondering if there's like the one thing that you think sets them apart.
well, and so these are just my thoughts, right? And I actually think there could be four things, and I'll just go through them real quickly, right? I
Sure.
talked about the first one just or just a little bit ago of hiring the right people and having that wonderful onboarding training program, right? And I think that is critical. See, I think because it's twofold. Not only does that wonderful, or not only does that training onboarding program make your new employees feel valued, right? Feel special, that are or that you are really delivering to them what you want them to go out and talk and serve your customers with. But here's the other thing that it should do. I believe that every person in that company should know when new people are starting. It should be no surprise. Oh, you started today? Who are you? Everybody in the company should know that new people are starting. That sets it off on the right foot, right? So not only do we have that onboarding program, but then do they have a mentoring coaching program? See, most of your companies, I'm sure they have full-time and part-time, but they probably have seasonal people, right? Places are starting
Sure.
to open up. Well, guess what? Here's what happened with my company. We had this comprehensive 8-hour training program. Sondra, we gave it all. But then, based on our schedule, they didn't maybe work for 2 weeks. Guess what? They forgot some of the stuff. So wait a
Right.
minute. Wait, hold on. Wait, there's an idea here. So then I paired up the new people with a veteran staff person who became their mentor and coach. Sondra, it was gold because now they had someone to go to, right? So hiring the right people, getting the right program in place. Secondly, you have to have strong leadership. Common sense, yes. Common practice, hopefully. But your staff is watching every move those leaders make, right? So if training, onboarding isn't important to the leaders, why should it be important to the staff, right? So what's that say? Third is the culture, right? What's that culture? I call it building that foundation, right? All the buildings that house all of your clients had to be built solidly first with that foundation. Well, your culture is your foundation, right? So what are you doing with that? And then lastly, what are you training them on of hospitality, service excellence, right? Customer service brings people in. We know that. Hospitality brings them back.
Yes.
So those are the 4 things I think that are critical.
Yeah, and just out of curiosity, I mean, these 4 things that you're mentioning, these are all things that would be addressed in your seminars or some of the conversations that you're having with the companies that you're working with.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it's, sorry, I had to put my water bottle down. We rush to service. Oh, folks, you got to, serve people. Well, I don't think you can serve them on an external basis until the people inside the internal know what to do and how to do it.
Yeah. Well, certainly, because leadership is an example of what that looks like for the guests, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And I've had a lot of HR people on the show recently, and I'm learning so much about these ideas in leadership that, I in some ways came naturally to me, but I also, have had a lot of bad bosses and knew that I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to be that person. And so, I think it's interesting that you're saying that a lot of hospitality comes from the top. And I think, was it you that we talked about a little bit about servant leadership?
Yes.
Yes, on our last, and I've thought a lot about that over this last year, how important something like that is, because at the end of the day, when we ask our teams to serve our guests, we as leaders are the examples of what that looks like for them. And in my mind, if a guest has a question, it's no different than a team member having a question. I love that you mentioned coaching. I'm a big advocate for coaching. And in fact, yesterday, I thought it was interesting. So I'm looking for a new executive coach right now. And one of the guys that I was interviewing yesterday asked me an interesting question I want to ask you, because I think this also plays well into what you're saying. He says, what makes this phone work? Is it the operating system or the app? What makes it great? You get a 50-50 chance getting it right. What do you think?
It should be the operating system.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, which is what you're saying, right? These systems are necessary in order for things to work great. You have to have systems in place for training your teams, like you're saying. And this also kind of brings me to a couple more questions that I have for you. I hope you're okay on time, because we're just
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We're about to hit the 30-minute mark, but I love talking to you, and I have so many questions for you. When we talk about the power of rememberable experiences, what role does emotion play in making experiences unforgettable? I've had guests on my show who have talked about how food is food and scents, and all of these things are playing a role in our memory of the experiences that we're having. I'm curious, from a hospitality standpoint, what are those things that you see?
Well, first of all, yeah, I mean, I think it is really key. And I talked about it earlier, right? So, because when you feel something, whether you feel happy, wow, upset, those are all emotions, right? And I think the more that we can pump positive emotions into our guests, the better we have. Now, I'm sure you know this, your audience knows it too, but there is a but there's a very powerful chemical in our brain. It's called the feel good chemical, right? It's dopamine, right? The more we appreciate, show appreciation, gratitude, thankfulness, which are all emotions, right? The more we show that, the more that our customers start feeling better about the experience, right? And if you can fill them with dopamine, you've got it made,
Yeah.
right? Because now they are so well into. I mean, think about and you talked about it here too with your restaurant. You have a favorite restaurant. We all have favorite restaurants, right? But you just said it. Why you go back? The food's good, right? The food is definitely part of it. But you're going back based on the experience, how you're made to feel. Maybe they recognize you. Maybe they celebrate the fact that it's your anniversary. Maybe they know that you've been coming back, right? They know your favorite drink. They know that hors d'oeuvre. It's a seamless process system, but it all plays into your emotions. So when you walk out of there, you are filled with dopamine. You're like, oh my gosh, this was incredible. I can't wait to tell everybody about this. That's the power of emotions.
Yeah, no, for sure. At always, the first time that we went in, it was our anniversary. We did a little staycation at the Ritz downtown in
Yeah.
Denver, which is attached to Always. So we just thought we'd keep it easy because, you know, I don't know why. We were just like, let's try it. It's supposed to be an amazing restaurant. They knew it was our anniversary. And I think actually the Ritz made the reservation and passed it over. But not only was the service excellent, but there were little things, as you mentioned. They celebrated our anniversary. They actually had an anniversary card that they gave us signed by John Elway, right? And their guests get that. And then they brought us two glasses of champagne, and they gave us dessert that night. I mean, it was a really amazing experience, enough so that we've been going back ever since.
I'd love to hear that. And you know what? It didn't cost them a lot of money. I mean, what's a glass of champagne cost, right? And a
Yeah.
card and a dessert, maybe 5, $8, maybe.
Yeah.
And look at the power of that.
Hey, we're talking
That's
about it on
becoming
the show.
memorable. Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about it on the show. And one other thing that I will say when we talk about leadership, when I bought my car, and look, when I went and bought, so I had been looking. I knew that I wanted this car for probably most of my life, and I just got into a position where I could buy what I wanted to buy. And
Sure.
I had such a great experience at Elway's restaurant that I bought a car from him too. And when I sat with the car salesman that was working with me, he was telling me how great John Elway is, in that he shows up to their all of their parties and celebrations, and whenever someone has big wins or whoever's being celebrated for the most sales, all of these things. And it just ties back into what you're saying about it starts with leadership.
It does. And, but here's the other thing about leadership, Sondra. And I think we may have talked about this the last one. I can't remember. See, I think that everyone in an organization has really the opportunity to be a leader. I don't think you need a business card or a title to be a leader for me. A leader is someone who empowers people, who values them, who mentors them, who influences them, right? So I would tell my staff, you know what, you are leaders in my company, because we both know this, right? People, we could do multiple events on any given day, right? There were many times where most guests couldn't even meet me because I wasn't there. But they based their entire experience on the leaders on my team that interacted with them. Same with your clients, your attractions. They may never meet the CEO. They may never meet the VP of ticketing, whoever it is, or guest experience, but they could base their entire guest experience on the frontline staff and the managers they interacted with. So are we empowering everybody on our team to be leaders in our organization?
Yeah, I love that. I was actually early on in my career, I read this book. It said, you don't need a title to be a leader.
Right.
And I remember reading that, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
I think that's how I became. I think that's how I became who I became in my role. But a lot of it is I was just showing up for that. But I also had great examples and a great culture around me that helped me do that, which brings me to culture, right? what are some maybe actionable steps or best practices that you can share that you see companies and organizations using for their teams to deliver consistently outstanding hospitality results? Is there anything that you can share with us today?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So first of all, culture isn't, free coffee and pinball machines or in the break room, whatever it is. I mean, those are perks, right? Culture. And that's why one of the things I talk about, as I said it earlier, culture to me is building that foundation of hospitality or that culture of welcome, right? So how do you do that? And so here's the formula that we used, and people may have other ideas, but it for me it boils down to number one, what's the mission and vision of your company, and does everybody know it, and can they participate in it, right? So, well, this is the vision, but this is my vision, and you can't do anything. You just have to work here. No, they want to help. They want to help you, right?
Yeah.
So mission and vision. Secondly, core values. We need to hire people that have great core values. Hopefully that these core values align with the core values of the company, right? So what are those core values? And here's the key. Sondra, when you see, and so this is what I do in my seminars, I give them this exercise, say, write down 3 of your core values. And then when you go back to your teams, do this exercise, but make 2 copies. You get one as the leader, they get one. Now, if you see one of your key people living out his or her core value of honesty, empathy, that's your time to go, hey, Sondra, boy, I saw how you worked with the Smith family for their birthday party. Just the empathy that you showed them. Thank you so very much. That means the world to us. She's like, oh my gosh, they really care, right? So core values got to align. The third one is the difference between function and purpose, right? The function is what we do. I work in ticket sales. I work at the gift shop. I work at whatever, right? But purpose is why you do it. What gets you out of bed every morning? Why do you do what you do, right? So, so the function of a front desk person is to greet people, right? Get them tickets, whatever. But their purpose should be to create a outstanding, rememberable, first and lasting impression by their body language, their appearance, their smile, the words they use. If people understand their purpose, it'll affect how they perform their function.
Yeah.
Which I love. And then lastly, and we did this, and I know that, I don't know if every company has this, but I think it can help. It's a mantra, right? Mantra is that internal mission statement. It's that rallying cry that everybody gets behind. They know what the mantra is on how to deliver great service and hospitality. We had it, and it should be between 3 to 10 words, right? Ours was much longer, but we boiled it down to 3 words: team, easy, and wow. At every pre-shift meeting, we would talk about, okay, folks, remember, as a team, team easy, wow. As a team, we got to make it as easy as possible for our guests to do business with us tonight, and look for ways to wow them every step of the way. So mission, vision, core values, purpose, mantra. That I think is a great foundation for culture.
Yeah, I love that because, one of the things that we say over here is we hire, fire, reward based on our values. We celebrate based on our values.
Good.
Right? But in my organization, our mission, and I'm just going to give the quick spiel rather than going the whole thing, but ultimately is to make sure that every attraction that we work with has massive success. What I love what you're saying is your team wants to help with that mission. And one of the things, and we talked about my kids earlier, like they didn't come into the world hospitable. I had to teach them that, right? And I think that it's interesting that so many of us are lacking that training and support that our team needs to be able to be hospitable. But even when we go back and just think about, what most people, I'm trying to think of the right word for this, but, most people want to be a part of something. They want to help, as you said, and one of my mentors, I actually did a number of masterminds with a woman named Elena Cardone. She's absolutely amazing. She's married to a billionaire, and she has these great philosophies on culture and family, right? In the business, because at the end of the day, I mean, business is about people, so they better be like family, in my opinion, right? I mean,
I agree.
I don't know about you, but if I've got to work with somebody every day, I want to like them and I want to take good care of them and I want to see them succeed
Right.
and a whole host of other things. But one of the things that she taught me in one years ago in one of these masterminds that really got me thinking, not just about my family and my kids, but she talked a lot about how people want to be in fair exchange with each other. And we see that from a very young age with our children. They want to be helping. So one of the things that I've done since learning that is really try to align even my kids with my mission of this business in helping attractions massively succeed. They love attractions. And that made it easier for them when I'm off traveling for, I spent 3 months in a hotel last year. So
Wow.
my kids, they don't get to see their mom for 3 months.
Yeah.
So, that's a long time. But one of the things that she taught me was being able to align them with that mission, because that innate sense that we all have to want to help. And I love that you brought that up, because I think that's in all of us at the end of the day. And if it's not, I mean, that's the attitude you don't want, right? You're hiring for attitude, right? So you don't want that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. You hit the nail on the head there. It's just that, why aren't more companies focusing on culture? I don't know the answer to that question, but I
Well,
think it makes a huge difference.
I think sometimes they just don't know what to do, which is why I'm so grateful for people like you who are
Yeah.
out there sharing these ideas, teaching people how to do this. And I actually just talked to one of my gate master partners, attraction that's been with us for over 12 years, and he's coming out to our GT Summit this year to
Nice.
just do a spotlight of his attraction. And when I got to questioning him as we're preparing for this event in April, one of the things he shared to me was that they brought in outsiders to teach them this idea of servant leadership, something that they had never considered. And that made a world of a difference. And having worked with them for 12 years, almost 13 years now, I can tell you, I can see that timeline when that shift happened, when they created that culture. And
Wow.
even not just because we deal a lot with revenue, not just from uh, a revenue and attendance standpoint, but just in the overall, even the way they treated us, right?
Well,
So,
and I wish more companies would think like that, because I think we have the mentality in business today that training is a cost and not an investment. And so when things aren't good, you're going to cut costs, right? But you've got to consider it as an investment, because you want people to stay with you, right? You want that retention. And the way you do that is keep training them. I wish more people had that mindset, because I'd be a lot busier, Sondra, if that was the case. But
hey, well, hopefully somebody watching here, hopefully those watching here are going to get you busy, because I believe this is something that a lot of people need to
yeah,
address, both from a leadership culture standpoint, but a business standpoint, and also just to continue to make this industry better. Like I sincerely believe that all attractions, that I'm here to help attractions massively succeed. This is why
yeah,
I do this show. I was an owner operator myself and could see the impact that we had on the lives of people. And it's not just the people that we're serving, it is also our teams. We're in the service of our
absolutely.
teams. So before
Yeah.
I let you go, I've got a big question though, because you mentioned the investment that you're making. And you've talked about measuring and improving hospitality in this thing called return on relationship, right? So what is the return on relationship, the ROR, and how does it compare to the ROI?
Well, yeah. So first of all, ROR is another term I think I've made up, like kind of like Rememorable. Um, but here's the reason for that. So everything we do in business, right? I mean, I have a business degree, finance. I mean, everything we do is based on return on investment, right? Because it's measurable. Did you make the calls? Did you resolve the complaint? What's the revenue for this year versus last year, right? I mean, everything we do is return on investment, and I understand that very much. But see, ROR to me is that intangible, right? I don't think you can measure it, but you just did ROR when you told me the story of the car dealership, right? You
Yeah.
went there, and how you are with Silver City, right? That's ROR. Because of how they treated you or at that park, and probably somewhat of a relationship they made, you are now returning on that relationship by now referring other people to that park. You have just, or you're going to put dollars in their pocket and they don't even know it's you, right? So that's the power of really making sure that our people know that everything we do has to have a good return on relationship. What are those things that you're doing, not just during the time that your people are at the attraction? That's very important. I understand that. But what are you doing to get them excited before they come? And then almost just as important, if not more important, what are you doing afterwards? What's that aftercare look like?
Yeah.
Right? How are you making them feel after? Because when they come back, do you have the technology that the questions are that says, oh, hey, I see, hey, here's a coupon for your favorite soft drink or whatever it is, because now, and all you're doing is you're building this relationship. And I think a high return on relationship equals a great peace of mind for your customers, because when they have peace of mind, that means that they trust you. And or because you've built up that trust by how you've made them feel time and time again during the entire guest experience. So we've got to strive for a high ROR, because that's going to lead to an even higher ROI.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and I love what you said about relationships and trust. At the end of the day, this show, I'm hoping people hear those little gems that we give on this show that help them do better at the business that they're doing. And the thing that you said about trust is so important, because people buy from those they trust. They
Yep.
know and trust. So before we wrap up, I just want to say, get Rememorable and
There you
build that
go.
trust with your guests. Keep them coming back. And I had no idea that those stories I was sharing would come full circle to this return on relationship. I really love that term that you coined there. That's pretty great. And I appreciate you sharing all that you shared with us today. Before I let you go, though, I do want to mention. So when we talk about, if I could just talk about Bob here for a second. After our last show, he sent me his book, which I do want to mention today on the show. It is Discovering the Missing Link, 25 Ways to Delight Customers with Black Tie Hospitality. He sent this wrapped in a bow tie. And I don't know if you remember, Bob, you sent me some gummy bears.
Well, that's because you said that's your favorite snack.
Right to my heart. It's like that's the gateway to my heart is gummy bears. But yeah, I have to thank you not only for those gifts, and I also want to make sure that we let people know that this book exists, but also, you are living what you're preaching. I know that from you. I've seen it. I've been able to, it's made you one of my most memorable guests on my show because of the nice things that you did for me as well. And I just really want to thank you for coming back to the show, for sharing these ideas. I'm really excited. Hopefully I get a chance to hear this new keynote that you've got. I'm just curious what else is on the horizon for you, because you're just always on the move, and I love watching your career and what you're doing out there.
Yeah, no, thank you. So yeah, I'm trying to, I tell people that, and I'm always looking for those opportunities, whether it's conference association work or the company work, because I think that what I talk about can not only make an impact, but these are things that people can implement almost immediately in their businesses and see that both at return on investment as well as return on relationships. And so, I'm always looking, and here's the funny thing, Sondra, and I do all work with a lot of companies, and probably the one thing that I have in common with all the companies I work with, right, is that they're already good at customer service, right? But they want to get better. They want to get to that black tie level of service and hospitality. Because people, oh gosh, well, gosh, what are you doing wrong with customer service? You're not doing anything wrong with customer service, but I just want to get you to that next level, right? Get you up, because when you get to that next level, that's when all the stories start coming out. And that's when you have storytellers. And I tell people, what would it look like if you could get 40 storytellers added to your company who are now part of your marketing department? It doesn't cost you a dime.
Right.
Because you're not telling everybody. So yeah, I mean, I'm always looking for, those opportunities. My book is on Amazon. It's a $10 book. It's a really easy read, 25 short chapters. At the end of each chapter is a black tie takeaway, just an action question that you can work on. I've had, people buy it for their companies for staff meetings. They'll read 3 or 4 chapters a week and say, okay, what can we do now to better elevate the hospitality? So I appreciate the opportunity to say that and talk about me. And it's been great to be with you. You and your team make it so easy for me to be a guest on your show. And I love that.
Hey, well, I appreciate you coming back. And I just want to leave the audience with this, because you've talked so much about that, elevating that experience. And I think one other thing, if I may just add to that, because I think, like you said, the return on investment is there, the return on relationship is there. But before we let our guests go, I just want to tell them, there is a difference between a Tiffany's, if you know the difference between a Tiffany's diamond and a Jewelry Mart diamond, they're pretty much the same diamond, right? But it's the experience that people are paying more for. So if, for me, one of the things and one of the duties that I have is to help attractions. We make a big promise of helping them increase revenue from 20 to 40% in that first year. And so it's a collaborative effort of not just we didn't talk much about technology, but the technology, but also the efforts that their team's making to create that elevated experience as well. It's a complete collaboration, and includes all of these things. So absolutely. I just want to thank you again, Bob, for coming on the show today. Thank you for being here. Real quick, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so just on my website, www.bobpacanovsky.com. I know it's a mouthful, but that's easy. Or you can probably just type in black tie speaker on Google, and who knows, I probably show up. At least I hope I do.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you being here today, and I appreciate you sharing this insights on the show today.
Thank you
we'll
very
see
much.
you soon. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
All right. Well, like I said at the end there, the difference between the Tiffany's diamond and the Jewelry Mart diamond is the experience, right? People will pay a higher ticket for a better experience. And when we're looking at ways that we can increase revenue in our parks, increase revenue in our attractions, there is, to me, the things that Bob shared today are actionable. They're easy. They are things that you can do right now. And if you need help, there are people like Bob out there that can help you make sure that you can do these things for both your guests and your teams. Thank you for being here today, listening to this show. I'm your host, Sondra, and this is the Live with Sondra show. I'll see you next time.